All right, all right, all right. We're going to be doing a little Cold War and Harry S. Truman, or what my dad would call the good old days when we knew who the bad guys were. Immediately following World War II, arguably even before the end of World War II, I should quit saying we, the United States had entered into a period of prolonged conflict with the Soviet Union. We call it the Cold War because the Soviet Union and the United States never actually went to combat, although lots of proxy conflicts were fought around the globe, Vietnam being one of the most important in our country's history. The groundwork for the Cold War and the transformation of the American state happened really quickly between 1945 and, let's say the end of the Korean War in 1953, somewhere in there. We tend to think of the Cold War as a necessary component. I don't know that it was necessary. I have some friends who study Russian history, and they tell me that the Soviet Union was devastated at the end of World War II, and that they weren't capable of doing what we thought they wanted to do and what we were scared they were going to do. So our response was out of fear, but the Soviet Union was not really able to deliver on the fears. So we should think about that, I think, fairly carefully, especially in the 21st century as we're waging wars to fight this ill-defined foe somewhere out there that may or may not be wanting to do us harm, specifically here in this country. Anyway, all right, so assessing fear, right? Assessing fear and assessing threats are a really important part of foreign relations. So let's get back to the Truman years, Cold War, and the American state. Okay, we are going to do horse meat and housewise because we still want to talk about rationing and the Republican Party a little bit more. Then we're going to talk about what we do in Europe, how, I say we all the time, don't I? What the United States does in Europe, what the United States does with communism and espionage, and then how this also impacts the broader world in World War II with Britain and other European former colonial empires retracting and granting independence. So this is a crazy time in the world. Horse meat and housewise. We talked about rationing during World War II. In New Jersey, you could buy horse meat from a licensed shop. And after the war, September 26, 1946, we have New Yorkers eating horse meat again. We've kept rationing on to make sure we didn't have those inflationary spikes following World War II that we had following World War I, and people are getting a little bit uptight with it. Truman is trying to figure out what to do. He's not running for re-election. There's a midterm re-election in 1946, and there's lots of Democrats up for re-election in Congress, so he has a decision. What should he do? The Republican National Committee chairman says that administration should take the long view, but of course they may be, forcing some sort of rebellion at the polls. And actually, that is exactly what the Republican Party was talking about. They ran on a slogan of "had enough." That was their slogan in 1946. Had enough of the Democrats. They've been in power since 1932. Had enough of government rationing. Had enough of, just in general, the Democrats. And they get control of the House and the Senate for the first time in quite a long time. And end of price controls follow quickly thereafter. So this is a broader change that's happening in American politics, and we're going to see it with Eisenhower being elected as a Republican for the first time in a number of years. We should keep in mind that during the war, Americans actually ate more. There was more available than there had been before we really jump-started the American economy with World War II. So Americans grumble, and the government actually probably did things to help people have more meat and have it more effectively affordable. But there's still a rise in the Republican Party because people just kind of get tired of the status quo. Rosie the Riveter goes back to the kitchen, mostly. So domestic conversion, lots of women wanted to keep their jobs, but most women don't end up keeping their jobs. So this sets the stage for what? For some sort of feminist revolution in a decade or two, but we don't have it yet. Here we go. Here is another way to look at this, and this is the economics of women in the labor force. This is 1950. This is 1998. Across the board, with the exception of seniors, across the board, there's more women working, and what I see this representing is a shrinking paycheck, so that you need two-income families increasingly by the end of the 20th century. There is some stuff that comes out of World War II, GI Bill. Tons of American servicemen are given a leg up, mortgages, buying homes, starting small businesses, getting college, and unemployment insurance to help them transition from the combat role in the military back to peacetime. Love these Letterman sweaters, aren't they the bomb? Love this dude with the yellow and the yellow. That is a good look. And then, of course, we got some boring U.S. guys, or U.S. military guys. Taft-Hartley, this is an amazing reversal. This is also the Republican Party coming back into power. Congress passed it over Truman's veto in 1947. It weakens unions, it weakens collective bargaining, and according to this, it helps the fat cats. So after World War II, we're going to see declining union membership because government policy makes it... Government policy weakens the strengths of unions, and so weakens the reason to join them. All right. Safe European home. Let's do this. We gotta move. We gotta move. All right. There's the Iron Curtain, right? It descends over Europe. This is Soviet controlled. This is Western democracies, with the exception of Yugoslavia, which is a tricky situation we won't worry about in this class. Oh goodness, this is kind of fun. This is me and my family, but the PDF covers it up, so whatever. I was a little boy in Germany in 1977. Truman Doctrine says the United States is going to aid anyone, anywhere, free peoples, anywhere. Free people, anywhere, right? Sweeping statement. This comes about in 1947. Congress immediately aids Greece. Britain is backing out. The communists are seeing us taking gains in that country. And so we agree to support, the United States agrees to support Greece. There's another view, and that is published a U.S. diplomat named George Kennan, who says that the United States is going to be in conflict with the Soviets because of communism, because of Russian character, and we have to respond with keeping the commies where they are. This view prevails. The United States starts the Marshall Plan to help rebuild Europe and lessen the support of commies. The United States creates stable trading partners. The European countries buy our goods. Everybody wins. Stalin blocks Berlin, trying to push the boundaries of this Cold War, see exactly where we stand. We respond not with troops, but with an airlift, and we bring everything into Berlin, which is behind the Iron Curtain, for a period of about, how long does it last? June to May, almost a year. No, little less than a year, yeah, right. 2.3 million goods, everything you could want. We throw down candy bars to the little children's. It's a beautiful thing. This also sets the contours of the Cold War. The United States will not fight the Soviets in Europe, but we expect there to be a battle in Europe. In preparation, in response to this Cold War reality, this containment reality, there's legislation that's passed Congress that fundamentally changes the way we set up the Defense Department. It's called the Department of Defense. It used to be called the Department of War. Underneath the Department of Defense, we have the Army, the Navy, and the Air Force. There's the National Security Council, which is this crazy We'll talk about it in just a little second. This crazy thing that has a lot of power and brings a lot of the different leaders of the intelligence community and the military community and the political community together. And then, of course, we have the CIA. It looks anywhere around the world, functions and duties related to national security. It's under the direction of the National Security Council. That gives the NSC a lot of power. CIA doesn't report to Congress or the public, and it does all kinds of crazy things, including overthrowing elected governments, like in Iran. The CIA is a bad operator as far as the ideas of transparency and democracy are concerned. During the Cold War, it does lots of shady things that tarnish the reputation of the America. Let's put it that way. This is the National Security Council. This is all the members of it. But basically, they direct defense policy, and they don't really answer to the public. This is what Eisenhower calls the military-industrial complex a little bit. Communism at home. Let's just get here real quick. Let's get some of the fears of the Cold War. There's investigations of espionage related to our atomic weapon program. As it turns out, no, I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. There's investigations of just communists in the government whatsoever. One high-ranking New Deal official is found guilty of perjury, so that makes it seem like there might be commies in the government, right? Soviets test a bomb. Espionage reveals that a British physicist working at Los Alamos had met with Soviets. Greenglass worked at Los Alamos and was associated with Fuchs. Ethel and Julius Rosenberg didn't have much to do with it. I love this image of Ethel being on the outside, but eventually she's found guilty with her husband, and they're both executed. Ugh, it's a horrible story. They really didn't do too much. Some stuff happened in their apartment, but any threat of communism is too much at this time period. And then finally we get good old Joe McCarthy, who's a demagogue, a politician who claims there's commies. He had no list. He made it all up. But there's this huge red scare in the country that commies are everywhere and they're taking over, and we've got to fight them at all places. So that gets us to decolonization. We're going to do this in about a minute and a half. Okay, before the Cold War, the United States had stayed out of foreign alliances since the beginning. After World War II, we get involved in many. Pay attention to the dates here. NATO's 49, Rio's 47, CETO's 54, Philippines is 51, South Korea is 53, that's after the war. CENTO is 59, but it gets disbanded after the Iranian Revolution, 1979. But very quickly after World War II, we have a bunch of interlocking foreign alliances. The United Nations is formed finally, and we are an important member of that. We're a member of the Security Council, and the Security Council can veto UN actions. Over the course of the 20th century, the UN goes from 51 member nations to 192 member nations. This is decolonization. We're moving quickly here, but hope you guys get the basic idea. Go back to the PowerPoint if you have questions. Here is the decolonizing world, all the different colors, different European nations, and all of this was claimed by these European nations, and then independence is granted. So that's that proxy war for the Cold War. A lot of these independence movements create proxy conflicts between communists and democratic forces, broadly speaking, Western forces. Whew, gee whiz. Yeah, we've talked about this before. Here we have that World War I craziness going on. There's no way I'm going to finish this whole PowerPoint, so I'm going to end it. I'm going to click through and say we've got the Middle East in here, right? That's an entire another story. We've got the Third World. It's an entirely another story. We've got China, and then finally we've got Korea. Woo, we're done.